The Metropolitan Chess Club smelled of polished wood, expensive cologne, and privilege. Mei Li knew every corner of it, from the gleaming trophy cases to the stubborn coffee stains on the back table that never quite came out, no matter how hard she scrubbed. 6 nights a week for 3 years. She'd cleaned this place while the city's elite chess players moved their pieces across checkered boards. Barely acknowledging her existence, tonight was no different. Mei pushed her cleaning cart quietly along the perimeter of the main playing hall, trying to be invisible as she always did. The soft clack of chess pieces and the occasional murmur of check formed the familiar soundtrack of her evening shift. She kept her head down, dark hair falling forward to shield her face as she worked. Knight to F3. A predictable defense, said a deep voice from the center table. Mei's ears perked up despite herself. She recognized the voice. Richard Coleman, a former state champion known for his aggressive playing style. Without looking directly at the board, she knew exactly what position he was referring to. Her fingers tightened around her mop handle as she fought the urge to glance over. "What would you play instead?" his opponent asked. Mei knew the answer before Coleman said it. Queen's pawn to d5 would be stronger, creating tension in the center while developing the bishop. Her mind calculated the potential moves automatically, like breathing. She had been doing this for years, absorbing games, positions, strategies while she dusted shelves and emptied trash cans. The players never noticed how she lingered near the most interesting matches, how she sometimes paused a few seconds too long when a critical position emerged on a board. Garbage collectors shouldn't be concerned with the value of what they pick up, her supervisor had once told her when he caught her studying a game too intently. The memory still stung, but it had taught her to be more careful about revealing her interest. The club began to empty as the clock approached midnight. Members nodded politely to each other as they left, discussing positions and strategies. Not one of them said goodnight to Mei. She was part of the furniture, necessary but unremarkable. When the last player had gone, she moved to the tables with a spray bottle and cloth. This was her favorite part of the night. In the empty club, she could finally look at the abandoned boards where games had been left unfinished. Some players marked their positions with notation sheets before leaving. Others simply walked away, the battlefield frozen in time. Tonight, an especially complex middle game had been left on table 3. Mei studied it while wiping down the adjacent table, her mind automatically analyzing the position. Black had sacrificed a bishop for positional advantage, but White had countered with a clever knight maneuver. She could see 4 moves ahead, where White would force a queen trade that would ultimately favor them in the endgame. "Beautiful," she whispered to herself, allowing a small smile. When she finished cleaning, Mei collected her things from the small staff closet and stepped out into the cool night air. The city hummed around her, car lights flashing past as she walked to the bus stop. Her apartment was a 30-minute ride away, in a neighborhood that looked nothing like the polished streets surrounding the chess club. Home was a small 1-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of an aging building. The elevator worked only occasionally, but Mei didn't mind the stairs. They gave her time to replay in her mind the games she had seen that evening. She unlocked her door and stepped into the small living space that doubled as her bedroom. The apartment wasn't much, but it was clean and it was hers. What made it special was tucked in the corner, a small table where her chess set waited faithfully. The board was nothing special, a basic wooden set her father had given her when she was 8 years old. The pieces were worn smooth from years of use, the black queen missing its crown tip, the white king slightly yellowed with age. But to Mei, they were more precious than the expensive hand-carved sets at the club. She set her bag down and went through her evening routine, changing clothes, warming leftover rice and vegetables in the microwave, and finally settling at her small table. From memory, she recreated one of the positions she had seen earlier that evening. Her fingers moved with certainty, placing each piece exactly where it had been. "Now what would I do here?" she murmured, studying the board. Her father had taught her to play when she was just a child back in their small apartment in Beijing. He hadn't been a master, just an enthusiastic amateur who loved the game. "Chess teaches life," he would tell her. "Patience, planning, seeing the whole board instead of just what's in front of you." After he died, chess became her connection to him. She played online when she could afford internet service, studied old books from the library, and watched games at parks. When she immigrated to America 5 years ago, her chess set was one of the few possessions she brought with her. May opened her laptop, an old second-hand model that ran slowly but still worked. She input the position from memory into a simple chess program and tested her ideas against the computer's analysis. She nodded with satisfaction when the program confirmed her thinking about the knight's best move. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her friend Lynn, who worked at a restaurant downtown. "Still up for Saturday?" the message read. May smiled. "Yes, 2 p.m. after my morning shift," she replied. Lynn was one of the few people who knew about May's chess obsession. They had met at an English language class 3 years ago and bonded over being new to the country. Unlike the chess club members, Lynn saw May, really saw her. "You should enter a tournament," Lynn had suggested more than once. "You're better than you think." May always shook her head at the suggestion. "I'm not ready," she would say, though the truth was more complicated. Being invisible at the club was one thing. Putting herself forward as a player would mean being seen, being judged. The thought made her stomach tighten with anxiety. She played against the computer for another hour, losing herself in the game's complex patterns. It was nearly 2 a.m. when she finally closed her laptop and prepared for bed. She needed to be up by 7 for her morning job cleaning offices downtown. As she lay in bed, chess positions still floated through her mind. She had seen something interesting in Coleman's game, a subtle weakness in his middle game strategy that he seemed unaware of. She filed the observation away with dozens of others she had collected over the years. The next evening at the club was busier than usual. May learned from conversations she overheard that a small local tournament would be held there that weekend. The news sent a small thrill through her, though she kept her expression neutral as she worked. More games to watch meant more patterns to study. "We need to clean thoroughly tomorrow," her supervisor told her as he was leaving. "Important people will be here for the tournament. The director wants everything perfect." May nodded obediently, though inwardly she wondered what made these players more important than anyone else. Chess was supposed to be the great equalizer. On the board, it didn't matter who you were outside of it. At least that's what her father had always said. She finished her shift and headed home, her mind already working out how she might be able to watch some of the tournament games while doing her job. Perhaps she could volunteer to serve refreshments? That would give her a legitimate reason to be in the playing hall. At home, she recreated another position from that night's games and studied it until her eyes grew heavy. Just before sleep claimed her, a thought surfaced that she usually kept buried. What if she actually played? Not just alone in her apartment or online, but across from a real opponent, in a real tournament. The thought both terrified and exhilarated her. She fell asleep with the image of chess pieces dancing behind her eyelids, her father's voice echoing in her memory. In chess, as in life, the most powerful piece may look ordinary to those who don't understand its potential. Tomorrow would be another day of cleaning around players who never really saw her. But someday perhaps they would see what she could do with a pawn in her hand and a board before her. Until then, she would watch and learn, and wait for her moment to make the first move. The morning of the tournament arrived with a flurry of activity at the Metropolitan Chess Club. May had been called in 4 hours early to help prepare. She polished every surface until it gleamed, arranged chairs with perfect precision, and set up refreshment tables with careful attention to detail. By the time the first competitors began to arrive, her back ached from the extra work. But the club looked immaculate. "Stay in the background today," her supervisor instructed, handing her a black apron that matched the servers' uniforms. "Keep the refreshment table stocked and clear empty cups. Don't disturb the players." May nodded, tying the apron around her waist. She was used to being invisible, but today she had been granted a perfect reason to be in the playing hall. A small thrill ran through her at the thought of watching top-level games up close. The tournament was invitation only, featuring 32 of the region's strongest players. May recognized many faces from her evening shifts, serious men and women who lived and breathed chess. They greeted each other with the familiarity of frequent competitors, some with friendly handshakes, others with curt nods that acknowledged both respect and rivalry. At precisely 10 o'clock, the club director, Mr. Winters, stepped to the center of the room. He was a tall man with silver hair and the confident posture of someone accustomed to authority. "Welcome to the 43rd Annual Metropolitan Chess Club Invitational," he announced. Today's competition represents the finest chess talent in our region. May your games bring honor to this noble tradition. The players took their assigned seats as Mr. Winters explained the tournament structure, 5 rounds of Swiss system play, with the top 4 advancing to tomorrow's semifinals and finals. May listened while arranging water pitchers, absorbing every detail. As the first round began, she moved quietly between tables, refilling water glasses and collecting trash. The room fell into the hushed concentration typical of serious chess competitions, with only the soft sounds of pieces touching boards and the occasional scratch of pen on scoresheet. From her position by the refreshment table, May could observe several games at once. She found herself particularly drawn to Table 1, where Victor Joe, the club champion, demolished his first opponent in under 30 moves. Victor was renowned for his aggressive style and photographic memory of opening theory. He was also known for his arrogance, often loudly analyzing his opponent's mistakes after matches, regardless of who might overhear. By lunchtime, the first round had concluded, and players gathered around the refreshment table during the break. Mia kept her eyes down as she replenished the sandwich platter, but her ears caught fragments of chess, discussion all around her. His knight sacrifice was unsound, someone said. She should have pushed the H-pawn earlier, commented another. May wanted to disagree. With the second assessment, the H-pawn move would have weakened the king side, unnecessarily. But she pressed her lips together and continued, working. The second round started after the break. May was clearing cups from an empty table when she found herself standing near Victor Joe's game. He was playing against an older gentleman and the position looked complex. Victor made a move that immediately struck May as suboptimal. The pawn advance created a weakness that could be exploited by a bishop sacrifice followed by a knight fork. Without meaning to, she lingered a moment too long, her eyes fixed on the board. The position was fascinating, like a puzzle begging to be solved. Something interesting, you girl? Victor's voice cut through her thoughts. May startled, nearly dropping the cups in her hands. She looked up to find Victor staring at her with narrowed eyes, his opponent looking equally surprised at the interruption. No, sir. Sorry, sir, she mumbled, lowering her gaze and hurrying away. Her face burned with embarrassment as she retreated to the kitchen. She should have known better than to stare. Years of carefully cultivated invisibility, ruined by a moment's fascination with a chess position. When she returned to the hall 15 minutes later, Victor had won his game and was loudly explaining his opponent's mistakes to a small audience of admirers. The older gentleman had already left the table, his face tight with what might have been irritation or humiliation. The afternoon progressed with May taking extra care to keep her eyes averted from the boards. After the third round concluded, the top contenders were becoming clear. Victor had won all 3 of his games, as had a woman named Dr. Patel, a quiet but formidable player with a reputation for endgame brilliance. The 4th round pitted Victor against Dr. Patel in what everyone expected would be a preview of tomorrow's final match. Their game drew a crowd of spectators, making May's job of navigating between tables more difficult. As she edged past the crowd, her elbow accidentally brushed against someone's arm. "Watch it," snapped the man, turning to glare at her. It was Richard Coleman, whose games she had often observed during her evening shifts. His face showed no recognition of her. "Sorry," May whispered, stepping back. But the small disturbance had already caught Victor's attention. He looked up from the board, his eyes landing on May. "You again," he said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. The cleaning girl who finds chess so fascinating. Conversations halted. All eyes turned toward May, who felt herself shrinking under the sudden attention. "I was just serving water," she said quietly. Victor's lips curved into an unpleasant smile. "No, you were staring at our game earlier, too. Do you play chess, cleaning girl?" Dr. Patel frowned slightly at Victor's tone but remained silent, her eyes returning to the board as if to suggest they continue their game. "A little," May admitted, wishing she could disappear. Victor laughed, a sharp sound without humor. "A little. How charming." He turned to the onlookers. "Our staff has hidden talents, it seems." "Victor, let's continue," Dr. Patel said calmly. But Victor seemed to be enjoying his new audience. "No, this is interesting. Tell us, where did you learn to play? Chess is not exactly a popular pastime for people in your position." The way he said, People in your position made it clear exactly what he thought of May and her job. A few uncomfortable glances were exchanged among the spectators, but no one spoke up. My father taught me, May said, her voice stronger than she expected. Her father had always told her to stand tall even when afraid. How delightful, Victor said with exaggerated enthusiasm. Perhaps you'd like to show us what you've learned? It could be. Educational for everyone. Mr. Winters appeared at the edge of the crowd, drawn by the commotion. Is there a problem here? Not at all, Victor replied smoothly. We've just discovered that one of your staff is a chess enthusiast. I thought it might be entertaining to see what she knows. Mr. Winters looked uncertain, glancing between Victor, the club's star player, and May, a part-time cleaner. We're in the middle of a tournament. Mr. Zoe, he said carefully. Dr. Patel and I can continue our game after a short exhibition, Victor insisted. Consider it a break for everyone's entertainment. Dr. Patel stood up. I don't mind, she said, though her expression suggested she found the situation distasteful. I could use a few minutes to clear my head. Mr. Winters hesitated, clearly caught between maintaining tournament decorum and placating his champion. Well, if Dr. Patel agrees, excellent, Victor said, rising from his chair. He gestured to a nearby empty table. Shall we set up a board for our cleaning lady? May wanted to refuse to walk away, to return to the safety of invisibility, but something inside her, perhaps her father's voice in her memory, pushed her forward. I can play one game, she said quietly. The crowd murmured with interest. Following as Mr. Winters reluctantly set up a board at the empty table, someone pulled out a chair for May, who sat down stiffly, her hands folded in her lap. Her heart hammered against her ribs as Victor took the seat across from her, his expression one of amused condescension. Since this is just for fun, let's skip the clock, Victor announced to the onlookers. I wouldn't want to rush our guest. He pushed a white pawn forward without asking which color she preferred. Of course he would give himself the first move advantage. May stared at the board, at the familiar pieces arranged in their starting positions. The nervousness she had felt began to fade, replaced by a strange calm. This was chess. This was the language she had spoken in her mind for years, watching from the sidelines, playing against herself in her small apartment. The crowd around them had grown. From the corner of her eye, May could see Mr. Winters looking uncomfortable, other competitors watching with expressions ranging from amusement to second-hand embarrassment. Dr. Patel stood with her arms crossed, her face unreadable. Your move, Victor prompted when May didn't immediately respond. Remember, the pawns are the little ones that move forward. Someone chuckled. May took a deep breath and reached for her first piece. May reached for a pawn and moved it to e5. The classic response to Victor's e4 opening. A simple move, one that any beginner would know. Victor smirked and quickly moved his knight to f3, attacking her pawn. Without hesitation, May brought out her own knight to c6, protecting the pawn while developing a piece. Standard theory, nothing remarkable yet. The audience watched with mild curiosity, some already losing interest in what they assumed would be a quick, one-sided game. Victor's fingers tapped the table as he casually developed his bishop to c4, threatening the vulnerable f7 square near May's king. It was a standard Italian game opening, one of the oldest and most analyzed in chess. May recognized it instantly from hundreds of games she had watched and studied. When she responded with knight to f6 rather than the more common bishop to c5, Victor raised an eyebrow. Her move was sound but slightly unusual at this level of play. Interesting choice, he commented, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Not what most beginners would play. May kept her eyes on the board, saying nothing. Her hands remained steady despite her racing heart. The game progressed rapidly through the opening phase. Victor played quickly, barely thinking about his moves, treating the game as a formality. May matched his pace, her responses coming after only a moment's consideration. Her moves were precise, each piece developing to its optimal square, her pawns forming a solid structure. Around the 10th move, Victor's casual demeanor began to fade. He paused longer before touching his pieces, his eyes narrowing as he studied the position. May had steered the game away from standard opening lines into a complex middle game that offered opportunities for both sides. She's actually not bad, someone whispered in the crowd. Victor shot an annoyed glance in the direction of the comment before returning his attention to the board. He pushed his queen to an aggressive square, directly threatening one of May's knights. Instead of retreating, May captured Victor's pawn on d4 with her knight, leaving her piece seemingly exposed to the queen's attack. A trap. Victor saw it immediately, as did the more experienced players watching. If he captured her knight, she would recapture with her bishop, developing the piece with a tempo and creating threats of her own. "Well played," Dr. Patel murmured from the sidelines, genuine surprise in her voice. Victor ignored the comment and declined the sacrifice, moving his bishop instead. The game continued, with both players developing their pieces and maneuvering for advantage. The crowd had grown completely silent now, the exhibition match having become unexpectedly serious. By move 15, what had started as a spectacle had transformed into a genuine contest. Victor was no longer smiling or making comments. His brow furrowed in concentration as he considered his options carefully. Across from him, May remained composed, her eyes darting across the board, calculating variations. "Who is she?" someone whispered. "Just the cleaning lady," came the response. "But she plays like—" The sentence trailed off, but the implication was clear. She played like someone who had studied the game for years, not like someone who had learned a little from her father. On move 20, Victor made his first significant error. Pressured by May's active pieces and precise play, he pushed a pawn forward that weakened his king's position. It was a subtle mistake, the kind that might go unpunished against an average player. May saw the opportunity immediately. She had observed this exact weakness in Victor's games during her evenings cleaning the club. He tended to overextend on the king side when frustrated, creating small but exploitable holes in his position. Her hand hovered over her queen momentarily, before moving to her knight instead. She placed it on e4, a powerful outpost in the center of the board from which it controlled multiple key squares. Victor's face tightened. He had expected the queen move and had prepared a counter. This knight maneuver was more sophisticated, setting up long-term pressure rather than going for an immediate attack. The crowd had swelled now, with even players from ongoing tournament games coming over during their opponent's thinking time to witness the unexpected battle. Mr. Winters stood at the edge, his expression a mixture of confusion and amazement. As the game approached move 30, the position had grown incredibly complex. Pieces intertwined across the board, threats and counter-threats abounded, and the advantage swung slightly back and forth with each move. But the overall trend was unmistakable. May was outplaying the club champion. "She's winning," Dr. Patel stated quietly to Richard Coleman, who stood beside her. It wasn't a question but a simple observation from one expert to another. Victor heard the comment and glared at the board. He was in trouble, and he knew it. His king's position had weakened further, while May had castled early and kept her king safe. His once proud pawn structure now had multiple weaknesses that May's pieces were targeting with precision. He reached for his queen and moved it to an aggressive position, directly attacking May's king side. It was a desperate move, hoping to create threats faster than she could respond to them. May didn't flinch. She had anticipated this approach. When pressured, Victor always went on the attack. She had seen this pattern in dozens of his games. Without hesitation, she sacrificed her rook, placing it directly in the path of Victor's queen. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers. It appeared to be a blunder, a crack in her composure under pressure. Victor's hand darted forward to capture the free piece, then froze millimeters above his queen. His eyes widened as he saw what would follow. If he took the rook, her knight would deliver check, forcing his king to move, allowing her bishop to capture his queen. 3 moves later, his king would be in an inescapable mating net. He looked up at May, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. There was no triumph in her eyes, no gloating, just the quiet focus of someone who understood the game at a profound level. Victor slowly withdrew his hand from his queen and tipped over his king. Conceding the game, the room erupted in shocked murmurs. No one had seen Victor resign a game in the club for over 2 years. Yet here he was, defeated by someone who had been serving water and clearing trash just an hour earlier. "Impossible," someone muttered. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Victor asked, his voice low and strained. May met his gaze steadily. "I watch. Every night while I clean. I've seen hundreds of your games. Watching isn't enough to play at this level," Richard Coleman interjected, stepping forward. "You've studied theory, analyzed positions." May nodded slightly. "I have a chess program at home. And books from the library. Self-taught, Dr. Patel said with quiet admiration. Remarkable. Mr. Winters pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with excitement. My dear, do you have any idea what you've just done? You've defeated a player rated over 2200. Me shrank slightly at the attention, unaccustomed to being the focus of so many eyes. I should get back to work, she said, rising from her chair. Work? Mr. Winters laughed. No. This changes everything. He turned to address the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we've just discovered an extraordinary hidden talent. Victor stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His face was a mask of controlled anger and wounded pride. Without a word, he pushed through the crowd and strode toward the exit. Victor, Mr. Winters called after him. The tournament, I withdraw, Victor called over his shoulder before disappearing through the door. The crowd's attention returned to May, who stood uncomfortably beside the chess table, still wearing her serving apron. Do you have a rating? Have you played in tournaments before? Someone asked. No, May said softly. This was my first real game in years. I usually just play against my computer. Dr. Patel approached and extended her hand. That was brilliantly played. Your tactical vision is exceptional. May hesitantly shook the offered hand, overwhelmed by the sudden change in how people were looking at her. With respect, curiosity, even admiration, Mr. Winters clapped his hands together. This is extraordinary. Simply extraordinary. His mind was clearly racing with possibilities. My dear, how would you feel about joining our club? As a member, not staff. Before May could respond, Richard Coleman stepped forward. Better yet, why not enter her in the tournament? Victor has withdrawn. His spot is open. That's highly irregular, Mr. Winters said, though he was clearly intrigued by the idea. So is a cleaning lady defeating the club champion, Coleman replied with a wry smile. I think we're past irregular now. All eyes turned to May, waiting for her response. The shy woman who had spent years in the shadows now stood in the spotlight, a chessboard between her and a future she had never dared to imagine. Silence hung in the air as everyone awaited May's answer. The thought of actually participating in the tournament made her stomach twist into knots. Playing one game against Victor had been terrifying enough. Now they wanted her to compete against other strong players? I don't think I should, she finally said, her voice barely audible. I'm not prepared. Nonsense, Mr. Winters exclaimed. What you just demonstrated was extraordinary. It would be a shame not to let that talent shine. Dr. Patel stepped forward, her expression gentler than the others. May I make a suggestion? When Mr. Winters nodded, she continued. Let's not pressure Ms. Lee into competing today. This has already been quite overwhelming. She turned to May. However, I would like to offer you some coaching sessions if you're interested. I believe you have remarkable potential. May blinked in surprise. Dr. Patel was offering to coach her. The woman was a respected neurologist who had achieved the rank of international master in chess. That's very kind, May managed to say. Mr. Winters clapped his hands together. Perfect. We'll get you properly integrated into the club, set up some training with Dr. Patel, and prepare you for our next tournament. His eyes gleamed with excitement. The Metropolitan hasn't had a discovery like this in decades. The crowd began to disperse, returning to their tournament games. But many cast curious glances back at May. Several players approached to introduce themselves, offering congratulations or asking questions about her background. It was more direct interaction than she'd had in the 3 years she'd worked at the club combined. Richard Coleman lingered after most had returned to their games. That sacrifice was brilliantly calculated, he said. 5 moves deep at least. 7, May corrected automatically, then immediately regretted speaking so directly. Instead of being offended, Coleman laughed. 7, even better. He shook his head in amazement. Victor needed to be humbled, though he won't thank you for it. I didn't mean to embarrass him, May said quietly. Of course you didn't. But chess is truth, as they say. On the board there's nowhere to hide. He gave her a small nod of respect before walking away. Left alone for a moment, May untied her apron with shaking hands. What had just happened felt like a dream, surreal and disconnected from her normal life. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was her supervisor. Where are you? The bathrooms need cleaning. Reality came crashing back. She was still the cleaning lady, despite what had just transpired over the chessboard. Coming right away, she replied, slipping the phone back into her pocket. As she turned to leave, she nearly bumped into Mr. Winters. "Ah, there you are," he said. "I've been looking for you. We need to discuss your membership paperwork." "Sir, I need to get back to work," May explained hesitantly. "My supervisor—" "Don't worry about that." Mr. Winters waved his hand dismissively. "I've already spoken with the cleaning company. We're making arrangements to adjust your role here." His expression softened slightly. "May, do you understand what happened today? Your play against Victor showed extraordinary talent. The kind of talent that shouldn't be wasted on cleaning bathrooms." Before May could respond, Dr. Patel joined them. "Don't overwhelm her, George," she cautioned Mr. Winters. "This is a lot to take in." She turned to May. "Would you be free tomorrow morning for coffee? We could discuss your chess development in a more relaxed setting." May thought about her schedule. She had her second job at the office building in the morning, but she could call in sick for once. After today, everything felt different. Yes, she decided. Coffee would be nice, Dr. Patel smiled warmly. "Excellent. Shall we say 10 a.m. at the cafe across the street?" As they finalized plans, the tournament continued around them. May noticed Victor had returned and was sitting alone in the corner, staring at a chessboard, replaying what appeared to be their game. His face was tight with concentration, as if searching for where he had gone wrong. The rest of the day passed in a blur. May completed her cleaning duties, though her supervisor seemed confused by the way club members now greeted her by name or stopped to chat. When her shift ended, Mr. Winters insisted on driving her home personally, talking enthusiastically about tournaments and training plans the entire way. "We'll need to get you an official rating." "Of course," he said as they pulled up to her apartment building. "And there's a women's championship next month that would be perfect for your debut." May nodded politely, though the thought of competing in a championship made her dizzy with anxiety. When she finally closed her apartment door behind her, she leaned against it and took her first full breath in what felt like hours. Her one-room apartment looked exactly as she had left it that morning, but somehow it felt different. The chess set on her small table seemed to call to her. May crossed the room and sat down, recreating her game with Victor from memory. She played through each move, analyzing where he had gone wrong, where she could have played even stronger. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Lynn. "How was the tournament? Did you get to watch any good games?" May stared at the message, unsure how to even begin explaining what had happened. Finally, she typed, "You won't believe my day. Can you come over?" An hour later, Lynn sat wide-eyed on May's bed as she recounted the events at the chess club. "You beat their champion? The arrogant one you're always complaining about?" Lynn exclaimed. May nodded, still somewhat in disbelief herself. "And now they want you to join the club and compete in tournaments?" Lynn continued, her voice rising with excitement. "Dr. Patel even offered to coach me," May added quietly. Lynn jumped up and hugged her fiercely. "This is amazing. I've been telling you for years how good you are. Finally, someone else sees it too." She pulled back, her expression turning serious. "You are going to do this, right? You're not going to hide your talent anymore?" May looked at the chess set, at the familiar pieces that had been her companions for so long. "I don't know if I belong in their world," she admitted. "They all have formal training, tournament experience. I'm just someone who beat their best player," Lynn interrupted. "Who cares how you learned? Chess is chess." The next morning, May arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, nervously smoothing her simple dress, the nicest one she owned. Dr. Patel arrived precisely at 10 a.m., dressed casually in jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than May earned in a week. "Thank you for meeting me," Dr. Patel said as they settled at a corner table with their coffee. "I imagine yesterday was rather overwhelming." May nodded, wrapping her hands around her cup. "Everyone was very kind," she said softly. "Kind, yes, but also excited. Talents like yours don't appear often." Dr. Patel studied her thoughtfully. "How long have you been playing?" "Since I was 8. My father taught me in China before he died. Then I just continued on my own." "And you've never competed? Never joined a club?" May shook her head. "We didn't have money for clubs. After I came to America, I was too busy working to think about it." Dr. Patel nodded understandingly. "Yet you found time to study, to improve." "Chess helps me feel close to my father," May explained simply. "And it makes me happy. Solving the puzzles on the board. That's the best reason to play," Dr. Patel smiled. "Now I have a proposal for you. I'd like to coach you twice a week. No charge, she added quickly when she saw May's expression. I'm interested in seeing how far your talent can go. Why would you do that for me? Because chess needs voices like yours, Dr. Patel said earnestly. Different perspectives, different approaches. The way you play, it's unique, creative. I've been playing tournament chess for 20 years, and I saw ideas in your game yesterday that surprised me. As they continued talking, May felt something shifting inside her, a door opening to a future she had never imagined possible. For the first time, her passion might become more than a private comfort. It might become a path forward. 6 months passed in a whirlwind of change for May. The small apartment, that had once been her only sanctuary now, overflowed with chess books loaned by Dr. Patel. Her worn wooden set had been joined by a tournament-quality board and clock, a gift from the Metropolitan Chess Club members who had taken to calling her their hidden queen. Twice a week, she met with Dr. Patel for coaching sessions that stretched her understanding of the game to new depths. They analyzed master games, explored complex endgame techniques, and refined her opening repertoire. May absorbed everything like a sponge, her natural talent flourishing under proper guidance. Your calculation ability is extraordinary, Dr. Patel remarked during one session. You see variations that take others years to learn to spot. May had blushed at the compliment. She still wasn't used to praise, especially from someone she respected so deeply. The club had arranged a special membership for her, waiving the substantial annual fees. Mr. Winters had also helped her secure a part-time job teaching chess at a nearby community center, which paid better than cleaning and left her more time for study and practice. Today marked another milestone, the final round of the regional championship, her first official tournament. May sat at the board, fingers lightly touching her white queen as she considered her position. Across from her sat Yuri Petrov, a seasoned player with an international master title. The tournament hall was packed with spectators, many who had come specifically to see the cleaning woman who had taken the chess world by storm. May had surprised everyone by advancing to the final round undefeated. Her official rating, initially provisional, had skyrocketed with each victory. Chess blogs had picked up her story, dubbing her the custodian of the checkered board, a nickname she found both embarrassing and oddly endearing. The position before her was complex. Material was even, but tensions ran high across the board. Yuri had just made a subtle move that threatened to unbalance the position in his favor if she responded incorrectly. May took a deep breath, centering herself. She thought of her father and his patient lessons, of Dr. Patel's encouraging words, of the countless hours she had spent studying alone in her apartment. The nervousness that had plagued her earlier matches had faded, replaced by a calm certainty. This was where she belonged. She moved her rook to an unexpected square, sacrificing a pawn but creating pressure along Yuri's king position. His eyebrows rose slightly. He hadn't considered this continuation. From the spectator area, May caught a glimpse of Lynn giving her a thumbs up. Her friend had attended every match, cheering louder than anyone when May won. Next to Lynn stood Dr. Patel, her expression thoughtful as she analyzed the position. May also noticed Victor Joe watching from the back of the room. He had avoided her since their game 6 months ago, but she had heard he was following her tournament progress closely. Some said he was studying her games, learning from her unorthodox style. The game with Yuri continued for another 30 moves, a tense battle where advantage shifted subtly back and forth. Spectators whispered excitedly as critical moments approached. May played with confidence, finding resources in positions that seemed dead even. Finally, after a series of precise exchanges, she created an unstoppable passed pawn. Yuri studied the board for several minutes before extending his hand in resignation. "Beautifully played," he said with genuine respect. "Your endgame technique is remarkable." The room erupted in applause. Mr. Winters rushed forward with the championship trophy, beaming with pride as if he had won it himself. Photographers from chess publications snapped pictures as May shyly accepted the award. "Speech," someone called out, prompting others to join in. Public speaking was still May's greatest fear. She had grown more comfortable at the chessboard, but addressing a crowd made her hands tremble. Still, she stepped up to the microphone set up for the award ceremony. "Thank you all," she began softly, her voice barely audible. She cleared her throat and tried again. "6 months ago, I was cleaning the floors at the Metropolitan Chess Club, watching games and dreaming. Today, she paused, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. Today I stand here because someone dared me to play, thinking I would fail. Her eyes found Victor in the back of the room. To her surprise, he nodded slightly, an acknowledgement between competitors. I want to thank Dr. Patel for her incredible coaching, Mr. Winters and the Metropolitan Club for their support, and my friend Lynn for always believing in me. She lifted the trophy slightly. And I want to thank my father, who taught me that chess is not just a game, but a way to see the world, where even the smallest piece has value and can change everything. The applause that followed was deafening. People crowded around, offering congratulations and asking for her autograph on their tournament programs, a concept that still felt surreal to her. As the crowd began to thin, Victor approached, his expression unreadable. May tensed slightly, unsure what to expect. "Congratulations," he said formally. "Your play has improved considerably since our game." "Thank you," May replied. "I've had excellent coaching," Victor nodded. "I've been studying your games. Your approach to dynamic positions is instructive." Coming from Victor, this was extraordinary praise. Before May could respond, he continued in a lower voice. "I behaved poorly when we first played. It was disrespectful." "You couldn't have known," May offered. "That's no excuse. I judged you by your job, not your ability." He paused. "I wonder if you would consider a training match next week. I believe we could both benefit from the practice," May smiled. "I would like that." As Victor walked away, Dr. Patel joined her. "A gracious winner and a learning loser. The best kind of players," she observed. "You've changed things at the club. May, people are more careful about their assumptions now." The following week brought another surprise, when a letter arrived from the National Chess Federation, offering May a special invitation to the Women's Championship. The letter mentioned a potential scholarship for international competitions if she performed well. Lynn squealed with excitement when May showed her the letter over dinner at their favorite noodle shop. "You could travel the world playing chess. How amazing is that?" "It's all happening so fast," May admitted. "Sometimes I wake up thinking it's been a dream." "Not a dream, just the world finally seeing what I always knew was there." Lynn raised her teacup in a toast to no longer being invisible. That night, May sat at her chessboard, running her fingers over the pieces that had been her silent companions for so many years. She thought about the journey, from the little girl in China learning from her father, to the invisible woman cleaning around players, to now having her name printed in chess magazines. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Patel. "New student asked for lessons today. A 12-year-old girl who was inspired by your story. She wants to learn chess after seeing you win. This is how change happens, one game at a time." May smiled, setting up the pieces for analysis. Tomorrow she would begin preparing for the national championship. Her life had transformed in ways she never imagined, all because she had the courage to make that first move when others expected her to fail. The chess pieces stood at attention, waiting for her command. Like her life, the board was full of possibilities. The outcome determined by courage, calculation, and the willingness to risk exposure for the chance of something beautiful. She thought of the Metropolitan Club, where she had once been invisible as she cleaned around the tables. Next week, she would return there not as staff but as a coach, starting a free program for underprivileged kids who might otherwise never be exposed to chess. Outside her window, the city lights shimmered like stars. May moved her queen to the center of the board, the most powerful piece in the game, once trapped in the back row, now free to move in any direction. Just like her,